Yeah, that definitely it's a massive spectrum of um, uses for money, and definitely some like you said, there's definitely probably a pretty steep line when there's it's gone way too far. And I think that balance I think is very challenging in this decentralized space as well. I think the other part that's quite challenging right now is some founders um, navigating, I guess, to some extent, regulations and the changing nature of regulations. Um, if you were to sort of point at where, if you look at the sort of regulations, and there are obviously a lot of change happening, but right now, where do you see, the main, like one change that you would potentially make that really would start to, I guess, be the catalyst, like you say, and sort of move us in a much better direction?
That's a hard one. Spoiler alert, this is basically, I think, like either chapter 13 or 14. So, but I will say, I think one of the things when I look at particularly some of the democracies like the United States and Australia, I think struggle with this quite a bit. But it's moving away from kind of prescriptive, very specific policy-based rules around this technology and moving more towards principles-based
Mm.
policies because at least in the United States we've had this problem where a lot of our regulatory frameworks at this point are a solid 50 sometimes 60 years old. They were built for cash. They weren't even built for a lot of TradFi, let alone digital assets. And so you have these like really old legacy systems that need massive overhauls.
Mm.
And they keep trying to kind of like bolt something on to like an old ship, and at a certain point, you kind of have to just build a new ship. And we're seeing that in the United States with some really awesome rules that have been proposed by FinCEN and I think definitely Treasury, FinCEN and OFAC, I believe.
Mm.
And they're starting to figure out how to implement Genius, but they're also looking at really critically Bank Secrecy Act modernization,
Mm.
which is like the name for kind of like all the 1970s-ish rules that led to our anti-money laundering and countering terrorist financing framework. And most importantly, they're starting to look at the effectiveness of these programs as opposed to just the checkbox nature of compliance. So if you talk to people in compliance, whether it was in a bank or in crypto, they actually had similar complaints that the system really incentivized like checkbox compliance, like get a tool, do this, but not actually analyze, is it in fact stopping money laundering? Is it stopping terrorist financing? Is it having
Mm.
any impact? Is it helping
Yeah.
law enforcement, right? Like you're spending these millions, sometimes billions of dollars on compliance. Is it actually having the effect that it was supposed to have, or are you just throwing money down a black hole? And so I think we're starting to see that modernization, and that's really good for crypto because crypto, ironically, is super good at measuring these things. Like, I don't think people realize how effective crypto and its visibility and blockchain analytics are for actually analyzing illicit finance and what's dirty. And so, like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because with crypto, you get this incredible visibility, but with great power comes great responsibility. So the problem is once you see it, you can't unsee it. So we weren't seeing it in TradFi. It doesn't mean it wasn't there, but now we're seeing it in crypto, which means you also have to deal with it. So people who
Mm.
move from TradFi compliance to crypto compliance, I jokingly say it's like living in a brick house and having to keep that clean versus living in a glass house. And if you're walking along the street, one of those is much harder to keep clean than the other one.
Definitely. Well, it's yeah, a lot more going on. I think you talked about that in terms of really implementing some of the new laws as well, and I think that's really interesting. Um, if you were to sort of zoom out a little bit right now and look at I guess threats and opportunities to crypto, what would you say sort of the biggest threat is, and what would you say the sort of the biggest opportunity is? Where what are you sort of seeing? Yeah, right now.
So interestingly, I think the biggest threat to crypto right now is itself in the sense of its immaturity, right? Because like what's interesting and what's happening is ever since Genius Act passed in the United States, we've seen more and more banking institutions getting into the digital asset space. And what's really interesting about the way that they're doing it, particularly in the United States, is that they are basically kind of waging almost an information war where it's, we're the trusted ones and we're the suits. Crypto is the hoodies, to steal the title of a really good friend of mine, Annalise Osborne's fantastic book, From Hoodies to Suits. She talks about this like cultural issue, right? And the longer crypto stays in hoodies and doesn't get to maturation and real compliance and FATF level, compliance, like there are these standards, institutional grade compliance and institutional grade maturity that banks look for. And the more that crypto kind of resists and doesn't have that and tries to kind of want to be a bank, but not have banking regulations, or want to be certain things, but not want to have like the same type of compliance, that resistance gives the banks everything they need to take the technology from crypto, build their own blockchains, right? Buy companies, basically just swallow the crypto industry. And all of the great things that we all came in, the democratization of finance, the reduction of intermediaries and the fees, it's just going to get swallowed by TradFi and incorporated so that they get faster rails that they can charge more for, and they make the profit. Because this for-profit narrative that they've
Mm.
created, right? Like this banks versus crypto is a completely false narrative. What it really should have been was democratized finance versus for-profit extraction banking.
Mm.
And the banks in the United States have done this really good con job where you see community banks, like community banks, I think paid for an ad against crypto during the World Cup. Community banks and credit unions should be the first bank, like financial institutions wanting to incorporate digital asset technology, tokenization, right? Things that would benefit their members and their customers. But the big banks have basically convinced community banks, ooh, it's banks versus crypto. And the community banks are sitting here seeing crypto and digital assets as the enemy, as if the first thing Jamie Dimon isn't going to do when he swallows up all of digital assets is crush community banks who are light years behind and don't have this technology. So, like, the threat to me is that false dichotomy that I don't think the crypto industry has been doing a good job at fighting, because they need to basically say, we are mature, we are institutional grade, we are doing these things, we are stepping up, we are not resisting compliance and regulations. And don't get me wrong, some sectors, like I jokingly say, it's like a Harry Potter sorting moment. Some are definitely going Gryffindor, but some are really fighting to stay Slytherin, and it is frustrating. Having said that, I would say the opportunities are, I see some companies, right? Like VerifyVASP is a really good example. We are the only FATF compliant crypto native travel rule solution. So we're getting reach outs from banks, financial institutions, and VAS that are like, hey, we want to up our compliance level, and you're the only tool in town at that level. Great. And there are some amazing compliance products, whether it's, Inca Digital or some of the other compliance products out there that we like frequently kind of partner with. But they're building really, really cool things, and banks are looking at it as the foundational structure for how do we get institutional grade security and compliance, but also move into digital assets. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for the companies that are both building reg tech and soup tech and the tools that folks need to like achieve that maturation, but also for the VASPs and the companies in crypto that are saying we need to up our game so
Mm.
that when a bank comes in our door, we are clean, spotless, ready to go, and we are on the same page, and they're not seeing hoodies, they're seeing matching suits.
Was a fantastic analysis, Amanda, and I love that democratized finance versus for-profit banking analysis. Thank you so much, Amanda, for making the time and space to come and talk with us. The new book, get it on Amazon. I've got the link below. The Catalysts, the Accelerating Forces, Forging the New World Financial Order. Thank you again, Amanda, for joining us.
I will just say, I still have a signed copy of your book that I think I got like 3 years ago. So if they're going on Amazon and you want two great books, I would say also get yours because it's fantastic and I really enjoyed it. So, book for book, thank you so much for having me. I wish I could be there in Australia in person. I absolutely love it. And it's just an honor to be on the show.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's very kind of you.